Welcome back. I'm Chris Sikora, and I'm going to step you through exercise 4 in Inventor 2021. This exercise deals with what you see up on the screen there. Some of its review as far as making these revolve features that we see here for this hand wheel. But what we're going to learn that's interesting here is the sweep tool. Now, the sweep tool is the very first of the tools we're going to learn for freeform design. Freeform design basically enables you to create pretty much all the other non-prismatic shapes that are out there. Like, for example, a prismatic shape is just a box or a sphere or radius, whereas freeform shapes are more organic in nature. Like if you wanted to design something that looked like a leaf or something, or a car body or an airplane, that's where we're starting to get into with sweeps. And this is a very basic sweep, but they're very useful. So let's go ahead and we'll get started. First of all, go to New, Standard IPT, and hit Create. Go ahead and click on Start 2D Sketch. Select the XY plane. Now, if you're wondering where we're going to get this information from, as usual, we're going to the Vertanu1 webpage, vertanux1.com. And from in here, just go to the instructional manuals and you'll see the Autodesk Inventor in the green there. Go ahead and click on that. It'll bring up the manual, and here you could actually get to page 37 to the beginning. You can see the dimensions that are right here. We might do it a little bit different than what you see here, but we'll still use the dimensions. Okay, so let's start off with the rectangle. And notice the rectangle I picked is just a 2-point. So click on this origin when you get the green dot, drag it up and make that 1 inch for the width. Hit the tab key and go ahead and type in 3 for the next one. And now you could click on front here and it should give you what we're looking at here. Okay, now what we're going to do is hit escape. And I want to show you a new tool we haven't yet used. We've used chamfers and fillets, but we haven't used a sketch chamfer yet. And so a sketch chamfer is found right over here. Sometimes you'll see fillet or chamfer. Hit the little arrow to the right of fillet if you don't see it, and chamfer should be below it. Click on that. Now here you have the ability to set a distance to distance, angle to distance, and so on and so forth. We actually want this to be 0.25. We're going to leave it at distance to distance because this is a 90-degree angle. It's going to come out 45 degrees. So go ahead and select that vertex there, and it should automatically put in the chamfer. And you can see the dimensions, and the FX means that they're tied together. So if one changes, the other one will update as well. And it's not a bad idea to pull out some of these dimensions just from the standpoint of making it look organized and easier to read. Now we're going to go ahead and we're going to put like a little radius here, a circle. So go to the circle tool and locate yourself right about here. Notice I'm inferring to the 0.25 top edge of the chamfer. And right in the middle, your Y should be about 1.7-ish. Click, drag it out, and make it 1 inch. And now let's go to dimension and dimension the center position of that to the bottom edge. Drag your dimension to the left and make it 1.75. Now, to locate it, we could actually use a constraint here. If you click on vertical constraint, select the center point of the circle to the top vertex of the chamfer. And that aligns it and it should constrain it. Now you can see below here it says it's fully constrained. Now, we haven't really talked about fully constrained too much in this in the previous exercises. Fully constrained means that you've added all the dimensions and all the relations necessary to where there's no more needed. And essentially that is what you typically want before you go into production with something. But initially though, when you're just working on conceptual work, it's all right to basically not put all the dimensions in, but later on you might want to add those and relations and constraints. So I'm going to go ahead and hit escape here. I'm going to drag this dimension out a little bit. Now, Inventor doesn't make you trim this information out, and we've learned the trim tool last week, so we're going to leave it. We're going to leave it as is. Now we're going to go to 3D Model, and we're going to go to Revolve. Now let's click on the home button up here so we can see what's going on. First of all, remember here, the blue line that's looking for selected profiles. So click here, here, and here. This negates us needing to select the trim and trim that stuff out. Now, then click on select axis, and you can use this right edge of the model as the axis and hit OK. Now in the book, you'll see that I dimension with diameters and such, and that's because I used a center line. As I'm seeing now, not as many people are using the center line because it's just more efficient maybe to do it this way. And but note that the center line, as I showed you in exercise 2, is very crucial, and your employer may or may not want you to use those center lines when you're revolving around, just for the point of having construction geometry and understanding what's going on. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and let's select the little... Okay, and so from here, we're going to go ahead and hit the little plus symbol next to the origins folder and find your XY plane. Click on it, and then you could go right here to create sketch. Okay, I'm just going to center it a little bit with my wheel, rolling it in and out for zoom. And what we're going to use next, if you hit the little arrow underneath line, you'll find splines. There's control vertex, interpolation, equation curve, and bridge curve. Now, the difference between control vertex and interpolation is basically interpolation is a much stronger control than the, it's just easier to use, especially those who are very artist. It gives you these control handles that are easy to manipulate. However, for new users, I find that the interpolated spline is actually easier to master initially for the first day. So we're not going to look at the control vertex, but note that that is probably what most professionals use for freeform design. But let's go ahead and use this spline interpolation. Move your pointer to the center, and you'll see you can infer to the center, but not really the center of the hub in the middle. So right about there, just click. Now drag this out and maybe infer to this edge, and you'll see the center point appear. Click on that, then click on this point, and now I'll start dragging it up. And I'm just clicking and adding points, and these control points are going to make my curve look interesting. Eventually, when you get maybe about a half dozen, 6 different control points that I've added, and it looks similar to mine, go ahead and hit OK. Now, if you don't like what you see, all you do is you grab these points and you could smooth out the curve or make it more dramatic, however you want. But you don't want it overly dramatic, so just be aware that that can lead to some geometry that's difficult to sweep along. You don't want it to tie itself in a knot, per se, and then have the solid do the same. It'll fail to actually merge in many cases. So once you have that the way you like it, notice I didn't use any dimensions, just kind of visually, just have a little fun with it. Get it how you like it. And go ahead, and now we're going to go to Finish Sketch. And what we're going to do, we're going to create a plane, and this is my favorite plane tool. Because with this plane tool, you could create a plane virtually at any angle going anywhere. And it's just based off of, it's a perpendicular plane to a curve. So what you could do, you could hit over here on this plane tool up here, and you'll see normal to curve at point. That's the tool. You don't necessarily need to select this in advance. You could actually control select the endpoint where you want the plane and then the curve that it's attached to. And then go to just the plane at the top and it'll create it. But let's go normal to curve. Click on that point and then click on the curve. And there's our plane. So we just created a work plane. And again, that's my favorite, because imagine you could draw lines anywhere and then say, I want a plane perpendicular to that endpoint. So, all right, now that we have that, let's go ahead and select it, select the edge of it, and go to Create Sketch. Now yours might rotate a little bit different than mine. That's okay. Go to the circle tool and get to the center of that. And when you get the little yellow dot, click and drag out. And we're just going to make this 0.5. Now, because I'm letting you have carte blanche on how that curve's looking, if you have a very tight curve, it may fail to sweep a 1/2 inch diameter circle. So if you have that issue, because I'm not there to actually see what you're doing, my recommendation might be to either smooth out the original curve or just make this circle smaller so that you could get past it, and maybe make it 0.25 or 0.125 if that fails. And usually one of those will work. Just from my experience teaching this as long as I have, just seen a lot of students have a little bit of a challenge there because we didn't use a dimension. Okay, let's go to finish sketch. We didn't really need to hit finish sketch, but anyway, I like to hide this work plane. So if you remember from last exercise, E3, if you right click on the edge at the 4 o'clock wheel there, turn off visibility, and then that hides it. Okay, now we're ready. Let's go to sweep. And it automatically had my profile selected for me, apparently because that was the last thing I drew. If yours doesn't have anything in here and if it's red, click in there to get the blue bar and select that circle. But now I didn't have to do that, so I'm going to go click over here and you can see the blue bars underneath. Oh, actually, I clicked on it a second time and turned it off, so be careful, it's like a light switch. So make sure you have that blue bar underneath there, and I'll select the curve. And you should be able to see the curve sweeping along into the model. Go ahead and hit OK. And that's a sweep. And look at how it has that free-form shape. All right, now moving along, we want to pattern this. So go ahead and you could select the feature right here on the surface, or you could find it on the model tree over here. Go to circular, and we're going to set this rotation axis. I'm going to select this hub. What's really kind of neat, I always like to point out a strength that CAD softwares have whenever I make videos for the different ones. And this is one that I really like, is it allows you to select any cylindrical face, even if it has a radius around that, so it's a complex face. Lets you do it. Not all CAD systems can do that. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and put in, let's put in 3 instances, 360 degrees, hit OK. And so we've just created our circular pattern. And we learned circular patterns with the rib tool in exercise 2, so that's not really anything new that we've done there. Okay, let's now move along to the XY plane and go over here and start a sketch. Now I'm going to click on front to center it. Go to the circle tool and find the midpoint of this edge over here on the left. Click and drag out a circle, make it 1 inch, type it in. And now go to the spline tool, hit the little arrow underneath spline, and go back to a line. We're going to draw at the origin here, click and drag out a vertical line, hit escape. And that's so we have an axis of revolution. Now let's rotate this around. Let's go to 3D model and revolve. So it automatically selected our profile again, which is nice, and it's just looking for the axis. So go ahead and select the center and hit OK. All right, now there are other ways to get an axis center where you don't have to draw it. You could show a sketch from an earlier sketch that was in there and use the edge and things like that. But I just wanted to show you. Sometimes it's just better to create a fresh one. Okay, let's go to the Fillet tool and set the fillets to 0.25 and proceed to select all these edges here. And you can use the X-ray vision. Oops, I didn't really want it on that edge, but that's okay. Suppose I'll just get the other one underneath it too. And we can select these edges. And we won't select the bottom edge because I have plans for that. All right, so we've got some fillets in there. Now let's go ahead and rotate it to the bottom side. Now I want to show you the hole tool. We've seen how to cut holes just by drawing a circle, going to extrude, and remove the material. The hole tool here is actually very, very nice. I was just using it today, and with some of the updates since the last time I used it, it's getting up there. It's pretty strong. So let's try it. The hole tool. Now notice you have simple hole, clearance hole, tapped hole, tapered, so like for national pipe thread, and you have counterbore. So let's go ahead and let's put a tapped hole in. So select tapped and then select counterbore. Now notice here you have libraries, ANSI and ISO libraries, metric and English. Let's keep it at a 1/4 inch, and actually look at this, the designation, quarter 20 UNC. If you hit the little arrow, UNS, UNEF. So you have all the standards, and this is why I was just like really impressed with this recently. They did have this functionality in it before, but never has it been so easy to use. It's really quite nice. And your classifications, as well as the termination, like let's go with the distance. And the distance right now is mine's defaulting 0.75. I'd like that. The thread, we'll have it go a 1/2 inch. And the rest of these parameters, pretty much that's just due to the selecting quarter 20. I didn't really change anything. Now, go ahead and select where you'd like to put it. Now, here's the thing. You can put them anywhere just by clicking on points and then putting dimensions in to locate it. But let's say we want to specifically get it centered. First of all, set it off center a little bit, like right here, just click, and you can see a nice preview there. Now, go ahead and grab that center point and drag it to the edge. And actually, there it is. It just highlighted the center. Let's get it on center there, and when you get the green dot, release it. And if you want to, you can make any changes you want here too. Go ahead and hit OK. And as we go up, look at that. It actually has a cosmetic thread that's in there. You can actually see it. Cosmetic threads are used generally. They're just an overlay, a texture that appears to be like looking like a thread. And the reason you want to use those typically for common ones like this is, UNC quarter 20, is because to have real or true threads cut in there uses a tremendous amount of system resources. And usually you could have hundreds, if not thousands, tens of thousands of little screws and holes. And you don't want to have those as real geometry because each one of those is broken up into a collection of polygons. Each polygon takes up bytes of memory, and so it really drags the system down. So that's why cosmetic threads are desirable. There is the regular thread tool. So if you're making something that's a unique thread, for example, like for a bottle or something, that's where you want to put in a real thread so you could get it in there and then mold it or whatever you need to do. So anyhow, that's it for that. Okay, so that's exercise 4. Now, I usually do like you to enhance it. You don't have to really enhance it much more. I'm just going to go over here and select, I just like to go with like Chrome sometimes, and maybe add a little surface that stands out a little bit differently than the rest of it. So I'll go with dark green. And then we could use this, we could go to View, turn on Perspective. And again, I like to use like 2 lights or 1 light, really gives it a nice shine. And once you have that, you could actually go over here to Visual Style, go to Realistic, it even looks better. And to make it really look polished, click on Ray Tracing. And again, the longer you let it go, and if you set it to draft or hide, it takes a long time. I have actually 16 cores, actually 32 threads running right now, and it still takes a little bit of time there. So now that we have that rendering, we're just Alt Print Screen. And if you remember, we've been keeping track. Those of you in my class, IMT 110, I want you to go make sure you're using either Microsoft Office or this one here. I'm going to go ahead and start that. Apparently I closed it without finishing it. And you can see this is what your portfolio should start looking like. I actually ended up updating a little bit and just going with the green and silver look. Just because I really kind of liked it, but you could do whatever you want. I really encourage trying different things. Now I'm going to Control V to paste that, and now I'm going to go over here to the crop, drag that in, drag that one in. I can drag that over. So we have one of them done. Now the lab, there's only one lab today for this week, and the reason why is because it's a tough one. And I suggest trying it on your own, but feel free to watch my video here. I'm going to start it up in just a second. But okay, let's turn off ray tracing. So here we go. Let's take a look at what it looks like. And I haven't modeled this in Inventor in years, so forgive me. I'm going to probably choke on it every so often trying to get it done. But here I'm going to go ahead and rotate this. It's actually on page 46. I'm going to rotate counterclockwise. Remember how to do that? You have to download this first, and then you could click on it to open it. It opens up in the browser, and all the different browsers have rotate differently. Like here, some browsers you could right-click and rotate if you want. And that's just so you're not having to turn your head. This is a hard enough print to read, let alone at an angle. Okay, so we could see this uses the same modeling theory that we saw with exercise 3 last week. So in this case, it's a radius of 0.75 at the bottom. It's tangent on those edges. And then we have 23-degree angles off there. And then 115-degree angle off of that. And then we have a dome over the top of 1.5. And the distance between centers is 1.25, and distance between that corner and the bottom center is 1 inch. So I'm going to drag this over, and we'll build that right now. So I'm going to go New, Standard IPT, Create. And this is Lab 4. So I'm going to go now to Start 2D Sketch. I'm going to go ahead and do it on the XZ plane, which is the top plane. And I'm going to proceed with a line so I could mirror across. And we'll get it to scale. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. And let's see, maybe about 1.5 inches in height. That's pretty good. Hit Escape. Now I'll go to the line tool again. Down here, about Y 0.5 and X minus 0.3-ish. Click. Drag out a line about 1 inch long. Click. Drag out another one. About 1/2 inch, and look, it's about 115 degrees. Remember, that's almost exactly what the print says. It actually is. So click, hit Escape. Now go to Mirror, and it's looking to select these 2 pieces of geometry. So I'm just going to window over them. Now I'm going to go to Mirror Line and select that line we drew, hit Apply, and done. All right, let's go now to the Arc tools. Go to Tangent Arc. And down below here, click and drag this around and make sure you get the green dot to lock it in. The next one is not tangent, so we're going to go with a 3-point. Click here, straight across, get the green point, drag it up. And remember, this is supposed to be 1.5, so we could actually just plug that number in right now if we want to. All right, I'm going to hit Escape. Let's go to Dimension. Now, let's dimension from here to here, and this is going to be 115. And then from here to here, that's going to be 23. And then this bottom arc is 0.75. Okay. Now mine's updating pretty well. If yours doesn't update, you might have drawn something over scale considerably or under scale, and so it kind of locks up a little bit. Doesn't lock up, you just have to maybe try put in a different dimension or just grab a point and drag it and maybe get it more looking like what it's supposed to be. Anyhow, let's move these out of the way here. And I have that 1.5. Let me get that, let me hit Escape here. It's making it tough for me to grab that little point. Not sure why. That's okay though. We could grab it later. All right, now I need to add some of those other dimensions. So I'm going to go back to Dimension. This bottom center point to the top center point right up here. Actually, let's make sure we get the proper center point. I think you have 2 of them there. Actually, oh boy, it's hard because this is why it's not a bad idea to use actually a center line. In fact, I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit Escape. I'm going to click on this line and then change to a center line and then click off of it. All right, so now I could see that that's the point there. And oh, look at that. I locked into it. I didn't realize that. Okay, let's see if we're going to have trouble with that. Maybe click here to here, and this is supposed to be 1.25. All right, it's not looking too good just yet, but let's see if we could click on this vertex to this center point, and that distance is going to be 1. Okay, it worked. All right, so I was getting a little nervous there. Like I said, I haven't done this one in a couple years on this system, but looks like we got it. All right, now we're going to proceed to extrude it. And according to the print, the extrusion thickness is right here. It's a 1/2 inch. So let's, oh, and also there's 25 degrees of draft. So go to 3D Model, Extrude Boss, and we're going to go ahead and put in the distance of 0.5, and the taper is to be 25 degrees. Okay, now what did I forgot to flip. I should have put minus 25 degrees. So easy fix. I just go over here, right click, and there's edit feature. And from here, I could actually hit this reverse switch. And there we go. And I put a little minus symbol in front of it, so it's a negative now. Let's go ahead and go to the Fillet Tool. And the fillet for this is called out on print at 1/2 inch. Select this edge, hit OK. Now there is a chamfer that goes along this edge, and we're looking at the print. It's 30 degrees off of the 25 that's already based there. And so, and also, if we're looking at this, let's bring this up. The location is 0.181 off the bottom edge, so 0.181 by 30. So let's go over here to chamfer, and we're going to go distance to angle. So 0.181 and 30. Now select that top face and this edge. And actually, I believe I'm supposed to reverse that. Let me, let's do it again. I think this face here, and then this edge. There we go. All right, now we could go ahead and hit OK. So from there, we now have our part ready to shell. We don't really have to put those other features in just yet. So let's flip it around and go to shell. And let's look at the print again. And the print, the typical wall thickness is 60,000, so 0.06. Select this back face to open it up and hit OK. All right, looking good there. Now we'll put in those cutouts. Select this face, start a sketch, and let's go counterclockwise, get that line there. All right, from here I'm going to go to the line tool, and I am going to use the center line just so I don't have that same issue where I can't tell the difference of what I'm looking at. So I'm going to draw that, hit escape, then turn off the centerline tool. That's the reason why I'm kind of avoiding it, because in this software you have to turn it off. But you don't really have to use it to begin with. If you're an advanced user, you're going to be fine. Okay, so the next thing we need to do, and let's see here. I do believe actually I might have, I guess we're okay. I think I should have centered this. I didn't center it. But let's we should be able to go back to that in a little bit. All right. So now I'm going to take the line tool, and right up here, right in there, I'm going to click and drag out a little angled line, like so. I'm going to go ahead and go to mirror, select that line to mirror, and then the mirror line is the center line. Hit apply. Done. Let's go to tangent arc. The bottom here, and put that in, and then the top one here. And now we should add some dimensions to that. So the bottom arc is to be 0.1. The top arc is 0.2. And the distance between the centers on that one is 1/2 inch. 5. And now look at this. I went a little too quickly here. So I want to get that aligned. So I want it to be tangent, actually. So I'm going to select tangent. Select that curve, and this one, that will smooth it out. So if that ever happens to you, I just went a little too quick, I think, and I didn't get the green dot like I'd hoped. Now we need to center the dimension. There's actually a bolt circle, and that bolt circle is 0.835. And so essentially, if we want to do that, we could go to circle and turn on construction, and highlight this edge until you see the center, and there it is, and 0.835. Is that right? Yep, 0.835. And hit escape and turn off that tool. turn off that tool. Now actually I'm going to go ahead and click on this with the right mouse button and change to construction because it didn't make it a center line like that. The center lines are explicit to that. Okay, and so in theory, oh, you know what? I was wrong on that. I'm sorry. We're looking at this one right here, which is a radius of 0.7. Okay, so technically we didn't need that one. Here's what we can do instead. Let's just go add a dimension. Since it's a radius, it makes it easy actually. We could click here to this center point. And again, that was just want to make sure, 0.7, okay. There, now it's located. Could have probably even made that tangent to that top edge, but I'm not sure if that, when I designed this years ago, that wasn't my intention. All right, now I'm going to go ahead and cut that through. Now we could do a circular pattern of sketches. I'm going to show you a couple different tricks here. Let's go to 3D Model, Extrude, select that profile and these profiles, reverse the direction. It should cut, make sure it's set to through all, and hit OK. Now that we have that, as we look at the drawing here, there are 24 degrees off center from each other, and there's 2 on this side and 2 on that side. So let's go ahead and select that extrusion, go to circular, and the rotation axis, select this right here. All right, now you know we could go around and turn off individual ones. Let me just show you here. If we went with 24 degrees, oops, I didn't want that. Right click, edit feature. I didn't want to hit enter. So we have 24 degrees, and let's just go with 3. Actually, it's just, that's per one. So we actually have 2 there. Oh, darn it, I keep hitting enter. Edit feature, sorry about that. I had to right click, edit feature. Okay, so we see that there. We have fixed. Oh no, we don't want fixed, I'm sorry. We want rotational. And if we double this to 48, now in that theory we could change it to 3 there, and then we've got it. All right, hit OK. Now, if we want to get them to the other side, now we could have gone all the way around with an array and figured that out, but I want to show you also you can mirror these over too. So if we select the extrusion, hold Control, select the circular pattern, go to mirror, in theory, we should be able to select our right plane, which is the XY plane. All right, and let's see, did it get it? I'm not seeing a preview. No, it didn't take, so let's edit that. All right, so the features, we've got to select this. There we go. Okay, we just needed those 2 selected and hit OK. All right, and there it is. Now we could continue on with the boss on the front here. Start a sketch. I'm going to rotate this vertically. Go to the circle. Now to wake this up, I just tap the edge, but don't click. Find that center point, drag it out. 0.868 was 0.868. Let me look. 0.835. Oh. So double click on that. 0.835. All right, and then that's 30 thousandths in height. So I'm going to extrude. So 0.03. Now we want to put a cutout on there, and there's an array of little holes. Here's what we're going to do with that. Select this face, start sketch. Let's get that rotated a bit again. Okay, and we're going to look at that print, and we can see it's a rectangle of 0.1 vertical and by 0.05 wide. It's centered. And it's located, the base of it's located 0.371 from center. So let's try that. Let's go to, use a 2-point center. Get right over here and let it float. Drag it out, and let's make that 0.1. Hit tab by 0.05. Hit escape. Now we go to dimension and dimension this bottom edge. If we select this, we should be able to get to center. There we go. And click, and then this is to be 0.371. And then it's located. Now we could hit 3D Model, Extrude, zoom up and select those two profiles, flip the direction through all, and hit OK. Now let's put some fillets on here. Now the radius is called out on here. You have to probably zoom up to see it. Let's see here. On a side view, there's 100 thousandths on the inside. And then there's I believe a 30 thousandths radius, yep, around the outside of that. So let's go ahead and put those in. So let's get this fillet in first. And it's supposed to be 0.03. Select this edge here and hit OK. Now we want to keep it separate from this next one. So now I go back to fillet. This one's going to be 0.1, and it's going to just be this edge here. It's going to give us a really interesting looking effect when we're done. And hit OK. Right now we want to pattern that hole and that fillet. So let's select fillet 3 and extrusion 4, holding control. Go to circular. The rotation axis, you can select this face. And again, because Inventor does it that way, it's rather unique actually. It's a very nice feature to be able to select that filleted face that's rounded as a axis of rotation. Now the placement, let's count how many we have there. I don't think I have it on the print. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Hit OK. All right, this next feature, there's no dimension for because it's just a logo. You're welcome to make your own logo. You don't have to do the one I did. I did like kind of looks like a Death Star, I suppose. I didn't put any dimensions on it. Just like that. And then extrude, select that, and I'm going to have it cut down, but I only want it to cut like 0.01, just barely recessed. Okay, let's flip it around this side. Let's get the inside now. Select this face, start a sketch. There's 2 concentric rings on the print, an ID of 1. Let's find that center. There it is. I just woke up that center. And there's one. The OD actually is 0.6, and the ID is 0.1. You could do an offset, I suppose. Oh, not. I'm sorry, 0.5. And then go to 3D Model, Extrude, select that profile, and let's look on the print what that's called out right here. If we follow this along, it's 0.13. Okay, now the boss is select this face, start a sketch. This one in the center is much easier, so I'm going to go circle, and I have to wake up the center point. Now normally I should have actually had that locked in there. You can see we could get by without it, but it is sometimes nice to lock into the origin. And I'm going to show you how I could go back and fix that if you wanted to. So I'm going to click here, and these are 0.125 if I'm correct. Let's again look at the print. Now they're 0.175, 3 of them. And then there's a recess in it, 0.1 deep by 0.1 diameter. And there is draft on those, and I don't think I called out the draft, but we can put the draft on, that's fine. We'll put like 1 degree. So hit escape, it's 0.175. And let's draw another one over here. We're just going to eyeball that one. Now I'm just going to draw this one out, click, and then I'm going to hit escape and control select these 2 and go to equal. That makes them both equal, so I didn't have to add another dimension because we want them all to be the same. Now I want to get that over to the other side. Let's go to line, and we could go ahead and draw just a vertical line there to mirror across. I go to mirror, select this, and then mirror line, select that, and apply, and done. Now we could go to 3D Model, Extrude Boss, select those 3, And let's look at what the print calls out for the height of those, 0.375. Oh, and I wanted to add drafts. So here's what you could do. Click on this, right click, and edit feature. And the taper, as they call it here, let's just add like 1 degree. And actually flip it so it's 1 degree, -1. And again, the reason for draft is so it can pull out of a mold easier. Now select this face here, start a sketch. And there's these bosses that are 100,000s by 100,000s. So we could draw those in, I suppose, right here, 0.1. And then I'm going to make these equal. So now I could go to equal, click on that, click on that, click on that, click on that. So again, they're all the same. Go to extrude, select those, and they get recessed actually. So flip the direction, make sure it's set to cut, and it's only 0.1 deep. And we're not going to add draft on those. All right, now all that's left if you want to add those ribs, and here's how. I'll show you how to do that. I don't have any specifications for the ribs other than maybe the thickness. We'll talk about that. Select this face right here, and that's the floor of that recess. Go to Create Sketch, and we can have a little fun with this. Let's go to the Line tool, and we could put one in right about there. Notice I'm not touching the lines. We'll put one in right about there. And then here, could right click, create line, rather than always going back to that. And over here, hit escape. Okay, now we want to get these over there, so we could actually use this line as our mirror. So go to mirror, select these two entities here and here. Go to mirror line, select that, and hit apply. Now let's try. I'm going to rotate this, and we're going to go to 3D model, rib, and you can select these. Now they're really thick. Now there is actually a rule of plastics that goes along with this. Now those deactivated because it's too thick. There's a 60% rule. The overall wall thickness on this, if I recall, was about 60 thousandths. Let's say it was 100 thousandths, 0.1. You should make the ribs on it 60% or less than 60% of the wall thickness. And the reason why is because those masses of plastic, as they intersect, vertical ribs with the flat face, will actually cause sinkage when it cools. And it will sink, make little sink marks on the nice flat side. So it's not flat anymore. So if you've ever seen a poorly designed part, that's why someone didn't reduce this. So the overall wall thickness, if I'm correct, was 60 thousandths. I could look at the print and make sure, but I'm pretty sure it was. So we'll make it like 0.03. We can make it, we'll just make it 0.4. We'll get within range, 0.04. Okay, we could also add draft to those too. Okay. Or taper. Okay, and hit OK. Now, I got really sloppy with those. I should have actually centered them, but again, I didn't have any specifications right off the bat. But there it is. That is our part. That's a tough one, and that's what you're going to see in industry. You'll actually get better drawings, hopefully. Actually, sadly, I used to get really, really bad drawings from customers, but not all the time. But that's it for exercise 4 and lab 4. Be sure to save this, and remember to do your alt print screen. I'd like to see if you could give it to me. Either side is fine, whichever side you'd like for your portfolio. Let's say I chose this side here. I really kind of like the inside. Let's go with that. And then we could go to default, and I'm going to go with chrome polished. And then I usually like to add a little bit of an enhancement on some of these faces. And let's go with the green, dark green there. And then we go to View. And you don't have to do this part, all these little details I'm doing. Realistic, ray tracing, and instead of the default IBL, I like one light or two lights sometimes looks better. Okay, and that concludes this exercise.